Welcome in Bills Mafia to the Air Raid Hour, your go-to podcast for all things Buffalo Bills. On today's episode, we are diving into our biggest takeaways from week one of Buffalo Bills training camp. We're going to focus a little bit on the 2024 class because guys like Keon Coleman and Cole Bishop are making headlines, and we got a bunch of other things to talk about. So stay tuned. It's time to talk Bills.
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on social media on Twitter at The Bills Guys, and flying solo this evening as we break down week one of Buffalo Bills training camp. Our newest feature you notice over here on the right-hand side of the screen, your live chats are actually going to be showing up on the screen, scrolling, sort of like a live stream like you'd see on Twitch, etc. throughout the show. So pretty excited about this new feature from our broadcast partner here. But this show is brought to you by the Cover One Sports Network and Picasso's Pizza. Ton to talk about tonight. I'm going to focus a good chunk of tonight's show on some of the newer guys to the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, we all want to talk about the 2025 class, and we're going to get into that this evening in part, talk about guys like Deone Walker, TJ Sanders, Maxwell Hairston. We'll talk about all those guys tonight, but I really want to hone in on the 2024 class. Guys like Keon Coleman, guys like Cole Bishop, even guys like Dwayne Carter. I want to have a conversation about them this evening because they're adding some intrigue of their own to this 2025 Buffalo Bills training camp. So is O'Cyrus Torrence. We're going to talk about him today, the 2023 draft pick. Christian Benford, we're going to talk about him, 2022 draft pick. So draft picks really are going to be a major focus of the evening tonight and how they're progressing throughout their Buffalo Bills career. But I also want to hit at some of the old guard, some of the guys I feel like we haven't talked about in a really long time, because when you're watching or scrolling training camp coverage over the past week, names like Matt Milano and Trey White are popping up a ton. So I want to have a conversation about two of these maybe forgotten figures in Bills Mafia as they are starting to reacquaint themselves with the fans in training camp. But let's start with Keon Coleman, because I think he's one of the bigger talking points of training camp. And I want to have a conversation on Keon Coleman here with you guys real quick. Let's start with a very quick, like Cliff Notes, basic rudimentary summary of how he sort of fared through the first 5 days of training camp. Day one was a struggle. All the reports coming out of day one was Keon Coleman's not separating. He had 0 catches on his 5 targets. It was not a hot start for Keon Coleman in Buffalo Bills training camp. Then he had a really good second day. Then on his third day, it was kind of a mixed bag, with some reports saying he missed 2 really gimme easy catches that he should have had. But then he came back day 4 and he was, by all reports, absolutely dominant. And then day 5, today, the first day in pads, he had another great day. So Keon Coleman is stacking more good days at this point than he is bad days. And again, just to summarize, where is he making the plays? What's that actually looking like on the field? He's making some nice plays over the middle of the field. His wins are coming at the catch point in these contested catch situations. He's doing really well on comeback routes. That seems like something that Josh Allen and the Bills offense are working on or focusing on, or just by happenstance it's happening, because I've seen a number of plays made both by Coleman and even Josh Palmer on some of these sort of comeback routes, but the receivers coming back to the ball. Joe Marino was at camp today, and I was listening to him this afternoon, and he was talking about when Josh Allen gets into that scramble drill, the drill that he's known for, right? The drill that, like, again, You want to have a structured offense in the National Football League. But one of the things that makes Josh Allen so special is the plays he makes when things break down. It's what separates him. It's what separates all the great quarterbacks, really. Keon Coleman seems to be the guy he's looking for when he breaks contain and he scrambles out and he tries to make a playoff structure. So Keon Coleman seems to be Josh Allen's guy in that regard, where Josh Allen makes so many of these awesome plays, these chunk plays that really contribute to the well-being of our offense. So it has been a pretty good start for Keon Coleman outside of those couple of struggles he's had with the drops in the one practice and the separation in the first practice. And the thing about Keon Coleman to me is it's all about expectations. And I think we should have a conversation about expectations regarding Keon Coleman, because at the end of the day, I think your takes on Keon Coleman or the way you view Keon Coleman is going to be almost completely predicated on what your expectations are for Keon Coleman. I feel like there are some people out there who think Keon Coleman is going to be some alpha X receiver. He's going to go over 1,000 yards consistently. He's going to be grabbing double-digit touchdowns every year. He's going to be this receiver that other teams have to focus on when they're game planning during the week. I don't think that that's who Keon Coleman is going to be. I think that those might be expectations that are too lofty, even if he is having some really good training camp practices. I think the more realistic expectation for Keon Coleman, and I think what we should maybe be expecting from Keon Coleman, is to be a excuse me, a really solid contributing member of the wide receiver room, right? Like, I fall into this latter category of thinking he is someone who is just going to be a really solid contributor in the National Football League. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like, the Buffalo Bills drafted him for a reason. He is going to go out there and hopefully on a weekly basis this season, he is going to play a ton of snaps like he did last year when he was healthy. He's going to get after it in the run game. He's going to be a threat in the red zone. And we saw last year he can add explosive plays here and there as well. As a contested catch guy, though, which is what Keon Coleman is, right? He struggles to separate. Even on his good days, most of his plays are coming in these contested catch situations. There's going to be more variance, and it's going to be lower percentage of success. You are not going to see the efficiency with Keon Coleman that you see with a natural separator like Khalil Shakir. I mean, what was the running thing that we were tracking last year? Like, Khalil Shakir on 37 targets has 36 catches. Like, Keon Coleman's never going to be that dude. And if our expectations are there for him, I think you're going to be disappointed. Essentially, in my opinion, I think what the Bills want Keon Coleman to be, and sort of what I'm expecting him to be, and feel free to tell me if you think I'm wrong here, is a more athletic version of Gabriel Davis. And I think that that's completely okay. I made a mistake earlier this week. I tweeted out that after the first day of practices where Keon Coleman struggled, and one of the recurring themes were things that we saw last season in his college film and minicamp and OTAs was he struggled to separate. And I made a mistake in prematurely tweeting out, like, I think Keon Coleman might be better off if this continues. So I did preface it, being the third or fourth option in the Buffalo Bills offense. And the reason why I sort of tweeted that out, and one of the issues with tweeting things out is you just have such a character limit that the nuance and the context that a conversation deserves doesn't really come out on social media platforms like it should. So I want to sort of, work through it and talk about it here. Where I was coming from in that tweet, I was thinking back to Gabe Davis and when he was most successful, when the fans loved Gabe Davis the most, when Gabe Davis was making all these big plays, being a real solid contributor to the offense. When was that? Well, it was when Stephon Diggs was wide receiver number 1, Emmanuel Sanders was wide receiver number 2, at least on the boundary, right? And Cole Beasley was working in the slot. So where was Gabriel Davis and all that? Gabriel Davis was the 4th receiver. Now, in this Buffalo Bills offense, I don't think you're going to find 3 traditional receivers that are going to be better than Keon. I don't think that's something that's going to happen, right? Khalil Shakir is better. I think Josh Palmer is probably going to be, better in a traditional sense, or above Keon Coleman in a traditional sense. I don't think Curtis Samuel is going to be that guy. I don't think Elijah Moore is going to be that guy. But you also have Dalton Kincaid. You have James Cook in the passing game. You have other elements to sort of lower the focus on a guy like Keon Coleman down. And that's where Gabriel Davis had his most success. And I think Keon Coleman can have success there as just a cog in the room as well. The mistake I made in the tweet, and again, tweets lack nuance and tweets lack context. And I made the mistake of this is I mentioned how, in my opinion, Ladd McConkey is the better player, the one the Bills passed on for Keon Coleman. And I thought the Bills missed on passing on Ladd McConkey. To me, that was a big mistake because, again, it lacks proper nuance and the conversation it deserves. I truly believe Ladd McConkey is a better receiver than Keon Coleman. I think throughout the course of their careers, Ladd McConkey, box score wise, is going to outpace and outproduce Keon Coleman. But you also have to think about it, right? Ladd McConkey is a natural separator, kind of like Khalil Shakir. So he's going to have a little bit more cushion. His efficiency is going to be better over the course of his career. In Los Angeles, there are not a lot of weapons, so he's going to get a ton of targets there in Los Angeles. So really what the Chargers are asking him to do, he's going to produce in that role at a grand scale. But that doesn't mean that Keon Coleman's not going to have a great career for the Buffalo Bills and play an important role for this team. Because as I mentioned, he's going to log a ton of snaps. He's going to play the boundary. He's going to get after it in the run game. He's going to go up and get a bucket, hopefully, when you need one. That's what the Buffalo Bills want for him. It's a different style of game. It's a different role, quite frankly, than Ladd McConkey entirely. So to me, I think I was a little bit unfair in even bringing Ladd into the conversation and comparing those two. The conversation, I think, should be around Keon and the role specific to him and how he produces in that role this season for the Buffalo Bills. Earlier this offseason, I crunched numbers. Mack Hollins is gone. If you take what Keon Coleman delivered last year and you take what Mack Hollins delivered last year and you combine those two things, what you get is 60 catches for 934 yards, which is 15.6 yards per catch, and 9 touchdowns. So if you can take those two players and Keon Coleman can give you that in one guy and play all those snaps and get after it in the run game and give you 60, 65 catches, 850, 900 yards, pushing 10 touchdowns, right? That is going to allow the Buffalo Bills, because it's one guy doing what two people did last year. It's going to allow other guys to sort of accentuate and grow their game. It's going to allow Curtis Samuel to get more involved. It's going to allow Elijah Moore to get more involved. I saw today in practice, it was reported that Ty Johnson, Ray Davis were on the field at the same time. The Bills can get a little bit more creative and get some other guys the ball in their hands and accentuate the games of other guys. So I'm going to stick to what I said on social media. I think over the course of their careers, I think guys like Xavier Worthy and Ladd McConkey are probably going to outpace Keon Coleman in the box score. But that doesn't mean that Keon Coleman can't have a great career specific to what the Buffalo Bills need him to do and be a key contributor to the success of the Buffalo Bills. And I guess this whole conversation online is just so like, Keon's got to be this. He's got to be this stud. He's got to be the star, or he's a bust. And it's just like, it's such a toxic conversation. And I accept my blame, my role sort of in that conversation, because I think I can feed into it a little bit at times as well, or get caught up in it a little bit at times as well. But I think we just got to judge Keon in isolation to what the Buffalo Bills want him to do, whether or not he can go out there and do it. And if he does and he plays that key role, who the heck cares what those other guys who the Buffalo Bills might have passed on do in relation to him in, box score statistics, fantasy statistics, whatever. So that's my take on Keon Coleman. Let me know in the comments what you think. And we're going to take a quick break right now to hear from our sponsors.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
Hungry? Get ready for flavor that's a masterpiece. Picasso's Pizza has been serving up legendary pies since 1980. Fresh dough, premium toppings, and that famous cup and char pepperoni. Whether it's game day, your lunch break, or a late night craving, Picasso's hits the spot every time. And you do not need to be in the 716 to order. You can get it delivered fresh nationwide. Head on over to picassospizza.net for details. Once again, that is picassospizza.net. All right, so a ton of things to talk about in relation to this training camp this year for the Buffalo Bills. I want to stay on the theme of the offense, and I want to pivot now to the exact opposite of the skill positions in Keon Coleman. I want to pivot to the big nasties along the offensive line. I want to have a quick conversation about O'Cyrus Torrence, because through the first week of camp, his name has popped up a ton. And as an interior offensive lineman, it's easy to sort of be kind of invisible, right? Like kind of just blend in, like only get noticed when you do the bad things. That's typically what happens with an offensive lineman. But O'Cyrus Torrence made a name for himself today when the pads came on in the one-on-ones and making a nice little pancake block on KJ Hamler, right? His name has popped up a ton. With all the other offensive linemen getting attention, like Deone Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, I think O'Cyrus Torrence has kind of flown under the radar a little bit. Obviously, nationally, as an interior offensive lineman, you're pretty much going to fly under the radar nationally, with the exception of a few guys here or there. But even sort of in the Bills Mafia community a little bit, it's a name that doesn't get talked about all that much. But this could be for O'Cyrus Torrence, right? I'm feeling the vibes on this one, right? Not a breakout year, because I think last year was the breakout year for O'Cyrus Torrence. He kind of went from a contributing rookie to a legit dude last year. But I think this could be the explode onto the stage season for a guy like O'Cyrus Torrence this year. And if that happens, he's going to be adding into next offseason as a pending unrestricted free agent. Well, he's got 1 year left on it, so he'll be a pending UFA next offseason. I don't know if my words might not have been the most eloquent there, but this is where we saw guys like Groot, guys like Bernard, Shakir, Benford get their deals a year before they were set to become pending unrestricted free agents. So will O'Cyrus Torrence, if he finally has that explosion year, right, be the next in line of draft, develop, and retain? Or will the exploding guard market, because guards got some ridiculous contracts this offseason, and positional value arguments get in the way? And that's something that we're going to have to monitor over the course of the season, depending on how O'Cyrus Torrence performs. And it's a big talking point next offseason is going to be, do the Buffalo Bills pay a guy like O'Cyrus Torrence? Because David Edwards and Connor McGovern are more immediate contracts as they expire after this season. So the Buffalo Bills are going to have some questions on that interior offensive line. And that's why depth names like Cedric Van Peren Granger, Alec Anderson, Chase Lunt, those are all names to follow as we talk about the interior offensive line over the course of the rest of the show at points, and over the course of the preseason as well. So that'll be super interesting. Last bit on the offense here before I get to the defense. How about just some general offensive takes? And one of the big things that I've noticed is the importance so far of offensive cohesion and the implementation of play action in terms of practice reps involving play action plays. I've been following Anthony Prohaska on Twitter. I think you all should follow Anthony Prohaska of Disguised Coverage if you don't already on social media. He was at camp all of last week and was given some awesome updates, some awesome insights, some awesome reports. And one of his biggest takeaways has been the Buffalo Bills' constant play action work the team has been doing thus far in training camp. This is something the Bills were statistically very good at last season, but they didn't use it a ton. Joe Brady had a press conference last week, and it was really an impressive press conference from Joe Brady. Again, I encourage you to go back to the Buffalo Bills YouTube page and listen back to his press conference. He stated how over the course of training camp so far, the player meetings have been great, and they've been mostly player-led. It's awesome to see. He talked about how the offense, it can't stay stagnant. It needs to evolve. It needs to grow. And I think you saw it last year with the emphasis in the run game. And that is how the Buffalo Bills tried to grow their offense last year. I think this year, the emphasis in training camp, which hopefully will carry over into the regular season, is sort of an emphasis on the play action stuff, which seems to be the new wrinkle that they are trying, the new layer they are trying to add to the offense in 2025. And that is where all these returning guys, this offensive cohesion comes into play. It's a huge advantage for the Buffalo Bills. Joe Brady doesn't have to sit there and reteach the foundational parts of our offense to these guys. For the most part, outside of Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore, the Buffalo Bills are returning most of their core key players from 2024. They already know the fastball. Now it's time to work on the changeup and the curveball and all those various different things. So while other teams around the league are installing their foundation while they're working on their fastball, the Buffalo Bills, again, outside of a few guys, like you can see Josh Palmer staying after and working with Josh Allen. There's a reason he's playing catch up, right? The Buffalo Bills have this leg up on their opponents, or most of their opponents, and that they get to work on these other elements of their offense, not just the foundational fastball part of their offense. So I think that was really an awesome thing to see over the first week of training camp. I hope that continues, and I hope we see that as a nice element, a nice layer to the offense once they kick off week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. Let's transition our focus now to the defensive side of the ball. Talked a little bit of offense here. Let's go defense now. And there's a couple of guys who are part of the Buffalo Bills old guard. They're making a comeback here. And one of them is Matt Milano. The reports out of camp so far, he's looking healthy. He's flying all over the field. He's made some plays, especially today with the pads on. Apparently he was moving sideline to sideline, looking really good in coverage. So Matt Milano could be back, guys, and he's in a contract year. So he's going to be motivated to really go out there and put on a show. And last year I felt like Matt Milano was there, but he was kind of just there. Could we get playmaking, difference-making, game-changing Matt Milano back? And if we can, that is fundamentally huge, because I feel like we didn't have a lot of that on that defense last year. I felt like, despite the fact that we got a lot of turnovers, right? I felt like our defense last year was just clinging on, and they were just trying to survive, and they didn't really have the talent that I think they had in years previous, and that I think they have now, to go out there and really be aggressive and get after it and have these game-changing players. And I think Matt Milano could be a game-changing player once again. So that's something that's going to be really fun, something to keep your eye on as training camp progresses and as we get into the regular season. Another guy, Trey White, right? Like, I don't think the expectations were all that high for Trey White when he came back. I know he's a great guy and he's a fan favorite, and we're all rooting for Trey White, but I think if you tapped into the subconscious of most Bills fans, they want Maxwell Hairston to be starting week 1, not Trey White, or they would want Dorian Strong to be starting week 1, not Trey White. But you have a guy here in Trey White who dealt with 2 brutal injuries, right? Achilles and an ACL. He's finally healthy. He's finally at full speed. You can just tell in his press conferences, he's got this cockiness, this attitude, this confidence. I don't even want to say cockiness is a bad word, right? Because, the difference between cocky and confident is prepared. And Trey White is prepared. He knows Sean McDermott's defense. He knows himself. He thinks the game just as good as anyone. So I don't even know if it's cocky. He's just confident in himself, and he's confident in his ability. And now he's got the athleticism again to go out there and do his thing. It's really hard to imagine at this point, a week into training camp, barring injuries and things of that nature, it's really hard to imagine him not being CB2 week 1 of the season based on what we've seen. So what an epic rise, I think, for a guy like Trey White. It's so good to have him back, right? Like, you saw him interacting with Deion Dawkins' kids and they were calling him Uncle Trey, just literally the easiest guy on planet Earth to root for. So it's awesome to have Trey White back, and we will be rooting for him as the season goes along. In that cornerback room, we talked about O'Cyrus Torrence earlier in the show, or I talked about O'Cyrus Torrence earlier in the show. And I said, I don't want to call it a breakout year, because that would be kind of disrespectful to what O'Cyrus Torrence put on film the last 2 seasons, but it's an explosion year. I think the same goes for Christian Benford, the guy who will be lined up across from what is likely going to be Trey White. I mean, the reports out of camp with Christian Benford so far make him play after play. He's been a true alpha shutdown corner, and he looks like a true alpha shutdown corner in the making. He seems to be taking that ESPN Jeremy Fowler anonymous coaches and executive article where he didn't even get a single vote, an honorable mention for being one of the better cornerbacks in the National Football League. It seems like he took that to heart, and he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's came out and he's absolutely balled. Trey White called him the best cornerback in the league. He was heavily featured on the Hard Knocks promotional poster. He's the only one where you could see his name on the back of the jersey. That was pretty cool, I think, for him, especially where he was in his career. He's staying after practice and mentoring guys like Maxwell Hairston and Dorian Strong. Trey White is too, right? And they all seem to be developing They all seem to be developing a really good bond there in the cornerback room. And the best part about this with Christian Benford too is he's already under contract at well below the market value because Brandon Beane got him extended before some of these other contracts like Sauce Gardner came into the fold as well. So really excited to see the next evolution of Christian Benford's game as the weeks and months progress here as well. Continuing on with the secondary, I feel like the secondary is probably going to be a theme of this show, more so than the defensive line, just because the pads just came on and really the defensive line just doesn't really stand out one way or the other until you start getting consistency and getting those pads on and things like that. So really a lot of the things you notice so far in camp, I think have been more rooted in the secondary, but Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, I want to talk about them both, right? I want to talk about the veteran guy and Taylor Rapp, and I want to talk about the young guy and Cole Bishop. Let's start with Taylor Rapp here. Seems to be healthy. He is confident. He had 2 big interceptions the other day on Josh Allen in one practice. He's been doing, based on reports, most of his work around the line of scrimmage, where we know he's just an absolute missile and can be a real weapon. He also seems to be taking the guy I'm about to talk about next, Cole Bishop, under his wing. The reports have been that like those two have been attached at the hip. They've been inseparable. They're building a good rapport. Taylor Rapp seems to really be mentoring a young Cole Bishop. So that's really awesome to see. I mean, this is a team and a coaching staff and guys like Sean McDermott that took Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer seemingly out of nowhere and made them all pros. And McDermott wanted this guy, Taylor Rapp, and he signed him to that 1-year contract, even though Hyde and Poyer were still here and the Buffalo Bills found a way to get him involved. And even though he wasn't like a starter, the Buffalo Bills still gave him an extension after like a so-so first year. There's a reason for all of that. The Buffalo Bills coaching staff believes in this dude, and they re-upped him for a reason, and they continue to put him out there in his starting role for a reason. And he is another guy. Like I talked about Matt Milano, like, hey man, we might have like a real awesome playmaker on this defense, one that we were kind of lacking last year. Sort of that edge. Here's another guy in Taylor Rapp who could be a sneaky big time playmaker for this team. He just needs to stay healthy. And it's really awesome that across from him, the number 2 job appears to be full go for Cole Bishop. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to do Cole Bishop one day and DeMar Hamlin the next day and Derek Forrest the day after. No, the Buffalo Bills are like, Cole Bishop, it's yours. Go take it. And it appears like he really has taken the bull by the horn here, and he has taken that job. Bobby Babbage spoke to the media last week, and he said the expectations and the anxiety from the expectations of Cole Bishop as a second-round pick may have gotten to him a little bit last year, and he may have fallen victim to the expectations game last year, but he appears confident now, and his athleticism is really flashing. The reports coming out of camp is that he's playing mostly in the post, which, again, I think Cole Bishop is more of a line of scrimmage player and a sort of like that type of player than he is a post player, but he's certainly athletic enough to do both. And he's a true split safety, or can be a true split safety. But you see him and Rapp switching. There was a report that like they were working on concepts where Cole Bishop would run to the line of scrimmage and fake a blitz, and then he would sprint back into coverage. Like that's some Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer type stuff. Things that I don't remember really vividly seeing last year from the Buffalo Bills safety room. Like if these guys, Rapp and Bishop, stay healthy, we might get this element of our defense back that we had with Hyde and Poyer that we just were missing last year because Rapp was in and out of the lineup, because, DeMar Hamlin, solid contributing NFL safety, just not like that dude to the level that like Hyde and Poyer were, and like just is not going to be able to recreate that magic. If a guy gets hurt and you have to toss DeMar Hamlin in there for 2-3 weeks, you feel comfortable with it. But as a 15-16 game starter, you're kind of like, So Cole Bishop, I think, gives you that edge. Taylor Rapp, if he's healthy, gives you that edge. And I really think the two of these guys could be forming a really fun safety tandem for the Buffalo Bills. And we know what fun safety tandems look like here in Buffalo and what fun safety tandems look like in a Sean McDermott defense. So that's going to be a really exciting thing, again, to keep our eyes out and look for. Overall, general defensive take, I think plain and simple, this is just more talented defense than it was last year. Like on paper, there are just better players than there were last year. I don't know how else to say it. And you see some of the things that they're working on in training camp. More man-to-man coverage work, disguising coverages in the secondary, moving the safeties around, You see the Ryan Nielsen effect. He's kind of like our defensive line Sherpa. You see him around the D linemen a lot, but you also see, as Anthony Prohaska pointed out, the Buffalo Bills working on a lot of 5-man pressures, which is something that Ryan Nielsen is known for, something different, something a little bit more unusual. They're more known for their 4-man pressures and dropping guys back into coverage. The Buffalo Bills defense appears like it's more confident, more aggressive, more assertive, faster, quicker. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, just quite frankly, having more confidence in the personnel that are on the field. There are better players on the field now. And I think the Buffalo Bills coaching staff realizes that, and they are going to take advantage of that. And I think you will see a much improved Buffalo Bills defense in 2025. But obviously, one of the things that we got to talk about, maybe before we get into some position by position minor stuff, is we got to talk about the injuries, because injuries can always stand in the way of that. And injuries have been a big talk and a big part of the first week of training camp here. And I see a lot of people on social media, like really just kind of like upset, kind of in their feelings over these injuries so far. But to me, and again, everyone's allowed to feel however they want to feel, right? Like, to me, nothing is really all that panic inducing yet. And I think another perk of all the roster carryover is most of these guys that are on this injury list I'm about to talk about here, they've been with the team for years, or at least a year, right? And they know the system. So missing time and giving other guys reps isn't the end of the world. And, we just saw in Dallas today, it was reported that Tyler Guyton tore his ACL, but then it turns out he didn't. There was no ligament damage. It was just a broken fracture. So he's only out 4 to 6 weeks. But, either way, like, you look around NFL training camps and there are ACLs popping and season-ending injuries and things like that. We haven't seen anything like that with the Buffalo Bills yet, right? Like, we've seen some soft tissue stuff. Obviously, the issues with Spencer Brown's back, that's something to monitor. The issue with Dalton Kincaid's knee, that's something to monitor. But like, we haven't had to start talking about, is Dylan Grable going to be our starting right tackle this year? Like, we're not there yet. Can Zach Davidson being contributed in tight end? We're not there yet, because we haven't gotten to this point with any of these guys where we're genuinely concerned that they're going to miss regular season reps. Could it get there? Could things get worse? Certainly, knock on wood, things get worse. But right now, we are still a long way away from week 1. So I'm not hitting the panic button on any of these injuries yet. But a quick rundown of some of these injuries. Tyrell Shavers with an ankle. He's competing for the wide receiver 6 spot. Apparently not as serious as the people initially feared when the cart came out for him. So that's awesome. Hopefully he can get back out there as soon as possible. Curtis Samuel, hamstring. That's disappointing. We know he dealt with injuries last year. Elijah Moore, general soreness. He's missing some time. Caden Prather, hamstring. He's going to miss some time. The Buffalo Bills signed Deone Kane today to add to that wide receiver room. But hey, guys like Jalen Virgil are going to get a chance now to get some reps out there on offense and to really prove their worth. And maybe the Buffalo Bills go out and consider keeping a 6th receiver, because a guy like Jalen Virgil really takes advantage of this opportunity. KJ Hamler is going to get an opportunity now, right? Like, I don't like the prospects of KJ Hamler making the team. I guess he's going to be one of the guys they're following on Hard Knocks. So maybe he's got a better chance than I thought, because maybe the Buffalo Bills are in the year of NFL film saying, like, this guy's got a real wide receiver 6 shot. Maybe they just like him because they know he's a personality. I don't know. But, guys like KJ Hamler are getting an opportunity to step up here. Dalton Kincaid out with knee soreness today. Dawson Knox is still out with his hamstring, but he's nearing a return. So that's good. Obviously, you don't want your top 2 tight ends banged up, but guys like Zach Robinson are going to get some reps. Guys like Jackson Hawes are going to get some reps. Reggie Gilliam will get to be a little bit versatile, moved around a little bit, learn some position versatility, or continue to get reps with some position versatility. So again, not the end of the world. The big one to me is Spencer Brown and his back. I'd like some more clarification on that from the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, from Brandon Beane, from Sean McDermott in their conversations, but not hitting the panic button there yet on Spencer Brown. Alec Anderson, undisclosed. He walked off today. That's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, he's a really integral player just from a ton of different standpoints, from a depth standpoint on the offensive line, from being that 6th offensive lineman, just from being just a presence in the locker room with his tenaciousness and his nastiness. So hopefully nothing serious there for Alec Anderson. Cedric Van Pran Granger and his calf, he still hasn't practiced yet. Terrell Bernard and his hamstring gives more reps to some of the depth linebackers who the Buffalo Bills might need at some point over the course of the season. Dorian Williams, lower leg, that one stinks, right? But again, doesn't seem to be too serious. It seems like he'll be back at some point. And then the last one here, I'm going to try to get off without giggling. Tyler Bass missed practice today with pelvis soreness. So nothing, I don't think, too concerning there. So as we sort of get to the back half of the show this evening, I thought I would just go through just going to go through position by position now and talk about maybe some of the smaller talking points over the course of the of training camp so far. I think what I touched on so far, and let me know in the comment section if you think I've missed something major, something big. I think I've touched on some of the big stuff. So I want to get into some of the more minute stuff over the course of the back half of the show, maybe some of the finer details. And just to simplify it, going to go position by position here. Quarterbacks. Couple of storylines. Josh Allen's thrown a ton of picks. Like he had 5 interceptions over the course of like 2 days or something like that. The last couple of days, not counting today's practice. I'm not sure how many interceptions he threw in today's practice, but I'm not worried about those. I made a comment on social media, and I'm just going to sort of reiterate what I said on social media. I remember, man, like as a Bills fan, you all remember this, right? Like the JP Lossman days and the EJ Manuel days, and even like the Ryan Fitzpatrick days, just like sitting there living and dying on like every throw in training camp, like charting the training camp numbers and how guys did in training camp and watching the interceptions and who was at fault and like all these different things. It's just like, just sweating bullets about your quarterback's performance in training camp. No one's worried about Josh Allen one iota. And despite all those interceptions, he's looked awesome through the first couple of, for the first week or so of training camp. If anything, these interceptions are a good thing, right? Like, I think that's one of the things as a fan I've learned to realize, especially with good quarterbacks, is interceptions in training camp aren't a bad thing. It is the quarterback working on communication and timing with his receivers. That's number one. And number two, Josh Allen is just learning what he can and cannot get away with. The dude can make throws that no other human on the planet can make, or very few other humans on the planet can make, right? So why not use this practice setting as an opportunity to see, hey, in this look on this play, when we do this, when I see a safety do this, when I see a linebacker do this, what can I get away with? What can I not get away with? Why not use training camp as a testing ground to do that? So I think that's one of the things that Josh Allen is doing. And again, I haven't seen anyone really concerned, so I'm kind of just, talking into the ether here with that, but seeing the interception talk and the interception post on Twitter, it just brought me back to a place where I used to be. And I'm so happy that we're not in that place anymore. Some other quarterback talking points. Apparently Mike White's killing it, like outplaying Mitch Trubisky in camp so far, making some nice throws, etc. It'll be really fun to watch Mitch versus White in the preseason, because I think in the practice setting, especially with the pads not even being on yet and there not being a lot of pressure, Mike White is not the most mobile of quarterbacks. So, if the pocket's not cluttered, if there's not a lot of pressure, there's no pads on, etc., guys like Mike White, they should thrive. So getting to see him in the preseason in some game settings, see if he can really put some cushion between him and Mitch Trubisky and make the Buffalo Bills finally move off of Mitch Trubisky. That'll be something interesting to watch over the course of the preseason. Running backs, not a lot of talk coming out of the running back room. I guess in training camp, really, it's kind of hard to judge running backs in this kind of setting. One thing you will notice is usage. I mentioned earlier, Joe Marino, and they were talking about in the Bill Squad podcast today, how there was Ty Johnson in the slot and Ray Davis in the backfield. So some pony backfield looks. That's cool. All right. Again, you have all this consistency and this carryover on offense. You can throw in new wrinkles. You can try new stuff. That's something new. Anthony Prohaska said he saw a lot of screens, a lot of leaks, a lot of wheels, a lot of utilizing the the running backs in the passing game. The Buffalo Bills and Joe Brady, like the Buffalo Bills, they were successful last year using the running backs in the passing game, but the volume really wasn't there. So maybe the volume increases this year to go along with just like the fact that I think they were number one in EPA per play when throwing the ball to the running backs last year. So that's something to keep an eye on. Reggie Gilliam, again, a lot of my camp reports come from Anthony Prohaska. So I really encourage you guys to listen into this guy's coverage and follow along with him on social media. Said that Reggie Gilliam's been used everywhere, fullback, tight end, moving all over the place, being used in different alignments, put in motion, all these cool things. Kind of deja vu to like every other training camp, right? Where I feel like the Buffalo Bills use Reggie Gilliam a ton, and then it sort of just like disappears in the regular season. I mean, Reggie Gilliam had a couple of weeks at the end of last season where he was just getting after it as a traditional fullback in the running game, and he was really helping the Buffalo Bills running game. But in terms of like that sort of Swiss Army knife, like gadget type of guy, we've just never really seen that out of Reggie Gilliam in the regular season like we do in training camp. So it'll be interesting to see if that carries over into the regular season. Wide receiver, we touched on the big one, right? Khalil Shakir's having a good camp. Joshua Palmer's making some plays. I think he's going to be the number one boundary receiver. It'll be interesting to see the target share compared between him and compared between Keon Coleman. It's going to be something to keep an eye out for. But I think he's going to be a dude, man. Like, I think Josh Palmer's going to be a dude. You see the analytics on the separation for man. And that's one of the reasons, to go back to what I was talking about at the top of the show. Like, Keon Coleman can be good, but don't expect the box score to be crazy, because like guys like Josh Palmer are going to eat into that. Like guys like Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, right? Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. You got to feed all those guys along with who's your number one receiver right now, Khalil Shakir. So like, there's just everybody eats, right? Like, so it's going to be hard for a guy like Keon Coleman to outpace on a box score, on a stat sheet, Xavier Worthy or Ladd McConkey, who are a more like sort of focal point of those teams' offenses. That's not a bad thing, right? As long as he's contributing, as long as he's doing what he needs to do, who the heck cares what the box score numbers are? Curtis Samuel hurt again. That's really disappointed. They were having a conversation on Bill's squad today about, if guys like Jalen Virgil step up, if a guy like Tyrell Shavers comes back and steps up and Curtis Samuel can't prove to be healthy, like, do the Buffalo Bills move on from Curtis Samuel? Is he not even part of the equation? Dude's got a dead cap of $8.6 million with another dead cap of 3.5 in 2026 if the Buffalo Bills were to release him. I'm not expecting Curtis Samuel to go anywhere. He's only going to save you $430,000 if released. But if you can find a trading partner for him, $1.7 million in dead this year, $3.4 million in dead next year, and you save $7.3 million. So if the Buffalo Bills were to move off of Curtis Samuel before the regular season, it's got to be a trade. They ain't cutting them. They're not going to eat that money. So that's just something I looked into at the wide receiver position after hearing that conversation on the Bill Squad podcast this afternoon. Last thing in my notes here is the wide receiver 6 spot. Do the Bills keep 6 receivers, or do they rely on DBs to be their gunners? Because there's a lot of depth at DB too that needs to be sorted out. It's Tyrell Shavers, who was having a good camp by all accounts, but he injured his ankle. That stinks. That really stinks for him. I hope he can come back strong. Jalen Virgil was the number one gunner on the first day of practice, and he's been making a couple of plays here or there. I'm not sure what unit he's making those plays with. So Jalen Virgil, Tyrell Shavers, maybe Deone Kane can throw his hat in the ring. Again, I just don't see what KJ Hamler brings to the table, but maybe KJ Hamler can throw his hat in the ring. So if the Bills do decide to keep 6 receivers, that's something to keep an eye out for over the course of the next couple of weeks of training camp. The tight end position, again, the injuries are worrisome, right? Like, your guys are Kincaid and Knox, and they're both dealing with like lingering stuff. Not exactly fun. You have a guy in Zach Davidson who's getting a lot of reps with the ones. He's not embarrassing himself, but when you get to the regular season, if Kincaid is healthy, if Knox is healthy, you have Jackson Hawes, who we're going to talk about in a moment. Like, where's there room for Zach Davidson? And if Zach Davidson pops off in the preseason again, can you get him to the practice squad? So that really stinks if, Zach Davidson gets claimed on August 27th or 26th, whenever they cut him, because, Kincaid and Knox are healthy, and then 3 weeks later, one of those two guys gets hurt. That would stink. That would really stink. But that's the problem you have here. And that's that's why the tight end, I think, injuries are a little bit more worrisome than others. But Jackson Hawes, dude, this dude's a certified dog. Like, he's going to be a fan favorite. Anthony Prohaska was having conversations about just how he gets after it, run blocking, talking about how much he loves sets where Reggie Gilliam and Jackson Hawes were on the field at the same time, and the way the Buffalo Bills were running the ball. Jackson Hawes is going to be a fan favorite. Bills Mafia is going to love Jackson Hawes once the regular season starts. I think he got under AJ Epenesa's skin to the point where AJ Epinesa took a swing at him at some point over the course of last week. So that's really interesting to see as well. Along the offensive line, at offensive tackle, Tillin Grable seems to be ahead of Ryan Vandemark in terms of who the next guy in line is for the Buffalo Bills offensive line. And that's a big role here with the questions surrounding Spencer Brown and his back. Joe Brady said the thing that really sets Tillin Grable apart is he can play 4 spots. So he's got all the athletic upside in the world. Like, he was a high school quarterback, just athletic freak. He already beat out RVD twice last year, both in training camp and then when he came back from injury to be the Buffalo Bills swing tackle. RVD is kind of solid. Like, he played in the Chiefs game last year, RVD, and the Buffalo Bills offense didn't really take that big of a hit. Now, obviously the Buffalo Bills offense is, putting guys, helping them chip in and all that stuff, but still didn't embarrass himself. right? So already quality offensive lineman, Dylan Grable's beating him out. He's got that 4-spot versatility. And I mentioned at the top of the show now something about Osiris Torrance. Osiris Torrance has got 2 years left in that deal. Then do you want to pay him? Connor McGovern, contract is up. Do you want to pay him? David Edwards, contract is up. Like, this year, we're golden. We're fine. But in 2026, 2027, like, now you might see some rollover and some turnover in who exactly, some churning and who exactly is playing on the interior offensive line for the Buffalo Bills. So could Dylan Grable throw his hat in the ring? Could Chase Lund throw his hat in the ring? Cedric Van Pran Granger. I'm not worried about his injury, his calf injury, but it really stinks that he's not in the field going out there and getting some reps, because I would like to see him as a 5th-round pick, a guy that I think fans genuinely like, and they like the upside of the player. You'd like to see him out there. You know, anytime Kendrick Green gets a chance to prove himself is not a good day, because we don't want him passing a guy like Cedric Van Pran Granger on the depth chart. So Alec Anderson injured today. We're still waiting on his report. Hopefully nothing too serious, but I really like the future at left guard. Like, I can literally see a competition next year between Dylan Grable, Alec Anderson, and Chase Lunt for that left guard job next year. The Bills got a good pipeline, and a lot of that has to do with, obviously, we've mentioned a million times on this show, Aaron Cromer and the awesome expertise that he brings. And hopefully, as we pivot to the defensive line here, Ryan Nielsen brings that to the defensive line. He's been kind of like the defensive line Sherpa, babysitting Marcus West through the first couple of days through OTAs and through mini camps and through the first week of training camp. He's really focused his coaching on the defensive line, but the Pats haven't gone on yet. So it's kind of hard to really gauge too much about what's going on with the defensive line. So I don't have a ton of takes here, observations here. I can tell you they're really slow playing Joey Bosa. Like, he's barely out there in teamwork. So the Buffalo Bills are taking no chances with Joey Bosa as they work him into the offense. Paris Shand apparently has made some plays. Javon Solomon's made some plays. It'd be really cool if he stepped up and, filled in as a pass rusher, a situational pass rusher, maybe even got some more reps than that. But other than that, kind of quiet from the edge rusher spot through the first week of training camp, to be expected. No pads are on. Don't really expect these guys to do too much. On the interior, again, I haven't really heard Ed Oliver's name or Larry Ogunjobi's name. No real reports on them, but I expect them to be solid this year. Obviously, Ogunjobi's missing the first 6 games. That stinks. Daquan Jones, I don't really know what to think about him, but I know he's out there with the ones next to Ed Oliver, so take that for what it's worth. We'll be able to make more determinations on them, I think, as the padded practices roll on, as preseason begins, etc. But hey, even though the pads just came on today, Deone Walker, TJ Sanders, the reports are good. These guys are making plays. These guys aren't looking like it's too big for them. So a good couple of days. Then there's Dwayne Carter. And I think they were having a really interesting conversation today on the Bill Squad podcast about Dwayne Carter. And I like Dwayne Carter. I mean, this guy was academic Heisman at Duke, 3-time team captain. He seems like a great community guy. He has all the charisma in the world. I thought he had what looked like a great offseason. But reports are this is a guy who made his bones in college as a penetrating 3-tech, and a guy who's just going to shoot gaps and penetrate and get into the backfield and be that type of guy. And the Buffalo Bills continue to play him at 1-tech, and he's the one going in after Daquan Jones. And Joe Marino talked today, he struggled to anchor, he struggled with his base. That's just not his role. He's doing something that's foreign to him. The Bills are not putting him in a position to be successful. They're not putting him in a position to be the best version of himself. So yeah, Dwayne Carter, your team is asking you to do this, go out and do it. But at the same time, dude, what the hell have we been doing? You knew that sort of anchor, free other guys up, let other guys be the best version of themselves. That type of player was what you needed. And the Buffalo Bills, just kind of didn't address it. Maybe TJ Sanders ends up being that guy and he's just playing with the third team right now. Cool. Reports are he's up to about 310 pounds. Everyone's Deone Walker's going to be the 1-tech. Deone Walker's not a 1-tech, guys. I know he's the size of a 1-tech, but this is the guy where his ceiling is the year we got 9.5 sacks out of Jordan Phillips. That's what Deone Walker is. Deone Walker's not a run stuffer. Deone Walker's a pass rusher. And he seems like he's slimmed down, which is good, because most people had said hey, he was too big for what he does best. So he's slimmed down and he's looked good. And, Alex Brasky had a really good picture of him, or he screenshotted a video of just him getting his giant paws up and almost knocking down a pass. So getting in passing lanes and making quarterbacks not see the forest through the trees. I'm a little bit higher on Deone Walker than I was when he was first drafted. So I think the Bills are just going to continue to maybe take it on the chin in the running game, or continue to try to do what they do in the running game. And they're really, really, really going to bank on penetrating and disrupting and getting in the backfield with their IDLs, because they just, like I said, they just really haven't addressed that plugger position. Linebackers, already talked about Milano. Obviously, the Bernard injury is worrisome. Obviously, Dorian Williams being out stinks. The only reports I've really seen out of training camp is Bale Inspector and Shaq Thompson are making the most of their reps and have been the best linebackers out there and getting the most reps at that inside linebacker spot. So that kind of sucks. If you're a fan of Buffalo Joe Andreessen, haven't heard Adefon Olufosino's name. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully in preseason, we get to see a lot more of the linebackers and we get to see them making plays and some of these other guys step up, because I think, again, if you were to tap into the subconscious of a Bills fan and you were to say, like, who do you want the backup linebackers to be? You'd want the younger guys. You'd want the Adefon Olufosino, the 5th round pick with the upside. You'd want Buffalo Joe Andreessen, all the athletic upside in the world, local kid, great story, all that stuff. You'd probably want them more than you want Shaq Thompson and Bale Inspector, but it is what it is. When you're a championship caliber football team like the Buffalo Bills are, sometimes you're looking for the guys who you think can come in and step in and contribute if your starters get hurt. And right now for the Buffalo Bills, at least through the first week of training camp, those guys appear to be Bale Inspector and Shaq Thompson. So it is what it is at this point. Boundary corner, man, what an exciting time to be alive if you're a Bills fan at boundary corner, and what a difference a year makes, right? Like, obviously we talked about Christian Benford at the top of the show, Trey White at the top of the show. They're probably going to be CB1 and CB2 this year. Trey White looks like his old self, and he's just a smart processor. And if he gets that athletic ability back, even in the slightest, he'll be a solid CB2 to go along with what seems to be a rising superstar and maybe an elite level talent in Christian Benford. That's awesome. And then you have Maxwell Hairston, who's got all the upside in the world. He's struggled in camp so far, to be expected with a rookie, right? But he's shown some flashes. Benford and White have both really taken him and Dorian Strong under their wing and really formed a nice bond with them. But, Hairston's a guy who gunned on special teams, so he could contribute on special teams. He can play a little bit on defense, and even if his role is not there in year one, he can fill in for injuries if something were to unfortunately happen to one of these two guys, or he can obviously clearly have a nice role in 2026 as he continues to develop. And then Dorian Strong, again, another one of these late round Buffalo Bills guys. We've seen it in the past with guys like Dane Jackson and Alex Austin, who didn't really perform here, but performed other places like the Buffalo Bills, Christian Benford. They find these dudes late in the draft. Dorian Strong should have been a late day 2, early day 3 pick. The Buffalo Bills got him in the 6th round. Like, are you kidding me? And he has taken first team gunner reps. He has looked strong on the second unit. Again, Benford and White are working with him, pulling him aside, doing all these things. So there's just so much depth. We got like 4 solid dudes there. And we haven't even talked about Dane Jackson, who we've seen perform adequately in this defense. And you have Jamarcus Ingram, who plays teams, and we've seen him perform adequately in this defense. So, like, they're 6 deep at boundary corner right now. It's insane. And this is going to be the talk of roster construction. Do you keep 6 receivers, Jalen Virgil, Tyrell Shavers? Do you keep an extra corner? Right? Like, because Ingram can go and Jackson can go and Strong can go and Hairston can go. Like, how does that all shake out? I think it ends up shaking out on the side of the Bills keep a ton of corners and they keep 5 wide receivers, but we'll see how it plays out. Nickel corner is interesting. Taron Johnson has been obviously the starter, and then Cam Lewis is the guy getting the second team reps. Jordan Hancock's been getting most of his reps at safety. So there you have it there, folks. Like, you've seen most of the reps for Jordan Hancock coming at safety, even to Corey Couch, who was a depth nickel corner last year on the practice squad, had a really good preseason. He's been taking most of his reps at safety. So you see guys like Brandon Codrington playing the nickel. You see, obviously Cam Lewis still getting his reps at the nickel. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues over the course of the rest of training camp, because we talked about Jordan Hancock's position versatility. He can play safety, he can play nickel, but like, if Taron Johnson is an important part of this offense, we use nickel more than 18 in the National Football League. If Taron Johnson goes out, you want to be confident in whoever you're throwing out there at the nickel. And if Jordan Hancock's been spending his whole preseason at safety, he's not that guy. He's not usurping Cam Lewis if Cam Lewis is the one getting all the nickel reps. So that'll be something interesting to keep an eye on. Safety reps. Safe to assume, I think right now, DeMar Hamlin's the third. Maybe that changes over the course of the preseason. And Derek Forrest he's getting his shot too. I think he's might be, fighting with Hamlin. And then again, based on the conversation Bobby Babich had at his presser, the Bills have plans for Jordan Hancock. I don't think Jordan Hancock's getting cut. So to me, Hamlin and Forrest could be battling for one spot. Interesting way that this is going to shape out, and some tough decisions the Buffalo Bills are going to have to make over the next couple of weeks, especially in that loaded secondary. And you love having that depth, and then some of that depth gets like to your practice squad, but some of it doesn't. And then injuries happen in the regular season. You're like, where'd that depth go? So it's fun to have now, and it's fun to have in the regular season. But then when the injuries start piling up, it gets scary again. So, hey, it's fun while it lasts, right? Last but not least, special teams. Let's close out with special teams here. Kicker Tyler Bass, he was 4 for 8 yesterday in some bad conditions, some rain, things like that. But all the reports previous were that he's been solid so far through minicamp OTA's practice. So not too worried about Tyler Bass and his pelvic injury quite yet. That could change obviously over the next couple of weeks, but we will see. Brad Robbins, nothing bad reported. He's hasn't done anything to embarrass himself to this point in terms of like sticking out in a bad way. So that's good. Right. So we have that to fall back on. But Chris Tabor, when he spoke to the media, said the punting competition is not over, even though Brad Robbins is the only punter on the roster. So take that for what it's worth. Brad Robbins, you've been fine, but you're still competing for your job, even though there's no one else on this roster but you. Tells you exactly the confidence level I think the Buffalo Bills have in Brad Robbins right now. So that position is still in flux as well. And then last but not least, some other, miscellaneous things with special teams here. Return duties. Coleman and Shakir getting punt return reps. That's cool. Like, to me, that's cool. Some people will be like, no, I don't want those guys returning punts. I don't want them getting hurt. I don't want risking them to injury. But in terms of roster construction, you want the guy returning kicks and punts to be as versatile as possible. If Brandon Codrington is your punt returner, but he can't return kicks, even though he's getting some reps at kick returner, and he really isn't much of a DB, he's just like, it's hard with only 48 guys on an active game day roster. You saw it in the playoffs last year. The Buffalo Bills benched him, right? But so if you can get Coleman or Shakir to return punts, right, and just be solid there, or rotate, right, and you get Ty Johnson and Ray Davis to return kicks, that allows you to save a 10th offensive lineman and to keep Ryan Vandemark on your team, which is awesome. And you're like, well, who cares? Well, I care. If one of our tackles gets hurt and Tillen Grable steps into the starting lineup, what happens if another guy gets hurt? I'd like Ryan Vandemark there. It would make me feel a lot more comfortable, right? I don't want to lose a guy like Dorian Strong. I don't want to lose a guy like Jamarcus Ingram. Like, I don't want to lose a guy like Jordan Hancock or Cam Lewis. Like, those are solid depth football players. I don't want to risk them to waivers because of Brandon Codrington. It's not like he's Devin Hester, right? So if Coleman or Shakir can do the job and do it well, and the Buffalo Bills don't feel like they're risking them too much to injury, that would just be so much better and ideal from a roster construction standpoint. So I think it is noticeable that Coleman and Shakir are getting punt return reps. I think it's notable that they're giving Brandon Codrington first team nickel reps the day Taron Johnson was out. It shows that the Buffalo Bills do not want a specialist. They do not want a return specialist. They want guys who can contribute in multiple ways. So that'll be really interesting. Whether they have to settle for the specialist because they feel like they have no other choice, that's going to lead to the release of a player somewhere else on the roster that stinks. And I don't think the Buffalo Bills want to do that. Gunner, Virgil and Strong were the number one gunners on the first day of practice. That really bodes well for Dorian Strong. That gives Virgil, I think, a leg up in the wide receiver competition, but I don't know where the reps went after that. And Tyrell Shavers is a notably good gunner as well. So he's in the mix when he's healthy with Jalen Virgil there for the wide receiver 6 spot, if there is a wide receiver 6 spot for grabs. So thank you guys so much for joining me this evening. Apologize when I'm going solo like this. It's hard to read the comments too much without losing my train of thought. Hopefully I didn't mumble too much or run on too much. I think we had a solid show here tonight, and I really enjoy you guys in the comments section conversing along with us this evening. Couple of things of note, we got some other things to react to, some other tea leaves to read over the next week. We're going to have Hard Knocks to talk about. Hard Knocks premieres tomorrow night. That's going to be spectacular. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait to see Hard Knocks. That's going to be awesome. We got the return of the blue and red on Friday. That's always awesome to see, the fans filling up the Ralph and the practice in the stadium and all that. And then we have preseason coming up in about a week or so here as well. So we have an actual game that we can look at tape from and we can analyze and things of that nature. And some of these positions that are a little harder to judge in training camp, like defensive line or like depth linebacker, we can start to see that with our own eyes if we're not at training camp a little bit better. So that's good. Those are some things that I really am looking forward to over the next couple of weeks. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Always appreciate it. There are 3 ways in which you can contribute and help us out here at the Air Raid Hour. Number 1 is you can smash that like button. Super simple. Smash it. Even if you don't like it, just give me a pity smash of the like button, right? To help us out here with the algorithm. Second thing, word of mouth is how we want to grow this thing. We want authentic, organic growth. So if you can click that share button, copy the link, text it, email it, friends, family, anyone you think would enjoy us here at the Air Raid Hour, would super appreciate that. And then last but not least, once this live stream is over, go back and leave a comment on the video that is left after, right? The on-demand video. That helps us with the algorithm as well. And over the course of the week, I make my way into that comment section. I respond to you the best I can. And we have a conversation in the comment section after the show is over as well. So that's a way you can help us with the algorithm. So thank you guys so much. Super appreciate it. And until next time, go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!